I think we will basically just get started and people can join in as they will. Um, let's see. Yeah, hi, welcome everybody. I'm Dustin, and you guys might know Brian from the videos that you might have seen of us talking online, teaching about seeing energy or lucid dreaming. Um, so, I'm not going to give too much of an introduction to Brian or to myself. We don't, uh, we're not overly concerned with credentials so much as hopefully competence. And I guess we're just hoping that tonight is valuable for you and that hopefully will speak for itself. So, tonight we're going to talk about conscious relaxation, which is what we consider a foundational practice, which means it's basically applicable to any type of meditation or esoteric practice that you might be doing. And it also means, as a foundational practice, that the more proficient that you become at this practice of conscious relaxation, the better every type of meditation or esoteric practice you do is going to function. So tonight we're going to start basically going over conscious relaxation as a principle. We'll look at the applications of it. We'll look at the benefits of it, and we will go through basically a short guided meditation together as well, and look at the process so that you can have an experience of it. And then we will do like a question and answer afterward. Does that sound good to everybody? Yes.
Hopefully,
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully.
because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll do all those things that I just said in the order that I said them, because you guys might be familiar with us a little bit, and we tend to just let the conversation unfold in an organic way and hopefully in the most relevant way. So I'm going to start with just a basic idea of the principle of conscious relaxation, and then I'll let Brian take over and do his thing. So the basic idea of conscious relaxation is that most of the time we are primarily engaged, our energy and our awareness is primarily engaged with our physical body and with our senses. And through conscious relaxation, we shift more of our energy and our awareness into the energetic or the invisible or the non-physical aspect of ourselves. So that's the basic idea. Brian,
Take it away.
take it away.
So yeah, that's the basic idea, right? So we can all agree, and I'm going to kind of go through it the way that I normally do, the way that I was taught too, so that it's basically the first principle is that we have a finite sort of pie of energy that we have at any given moment, right? But through our normal day, most of it's engaged in the physical processes, right? So the body sort of tells us what to do. It tells us when we're hungry. It tells us when we need to use the restroom. It tells us when we need to rest or take a walk or move around, right? So, but when we're trying to do meditation or other esoteric practices, we're shifting. We're sort of saying, okay, we need more energy to do that. So we shunt the energy that's usually used for the physical processes and move that into the energetic processes. So that's, I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty simple, right? On a more basic level. Like, when we want to relax, I mean, there's different levels of relaxation, right? So it's like if I want to relax, I sit down, comfy chair instead of at my desk or whatever. I'm listening to some music or, watching a movie, having conversation with somebody. I'm not really, my body's not really that engaged, right? I'm sort of taking it offline to some extent. And, and my mind starts to relax. It starts to be engaged with whatever else that I'm doing. So in that case, we're just sort of ramping it up a little bit when we do things like meditation or different types of meditation or different types of esoteric practices. I mean, there's more than just meditation out there, right? But it sort of falls under that general heading. So with conscious relaxation, what we're trying to do is systematically shunt more of the energy to that invisible or that mental realm rather than letting it sort of just rest in the physical, right? So we close our eyes, right? We take that offline, right? And in a different, when we really relax, we actually go through all of the senses as well. Like we try to relax our hearing, we try to relax our sense of smell, our sense of taste are two of the ones that are a little bit easier, right? Our tactile sense, right? A lot of times, in a monastery or a temple atmosphere, we would focus on, the physical condition of our body, and then as we sort of move more into that realm, more and more of that goes away. Ideally, an ideal conscious relaxation, none of your senses would be online, right? Your physical body would basically be asleep. So easy enough with eyes closed, right? But how do we reduce the hearing? How to reduce that? Well, this is part of that practice of being able to do that more and more. Because, again, in the temple, they would say, um, regardless of the type of meditation that you're doing, there's literally a one-to-one relationship, meaning your meditation will work directly as much as you can relax the body. It will succeed exactly to the extent that you can relax the physical body down to almost nothing, right? So the ideal being, again, it's like my body is asleep, but my consciousness is awake and aware, right? So that's the ideal. It takes a long time to get there, but it is possible for anybody to do that over time. So, one of my teachers would say, when you first start out, and you start trying to relax the body, he'd say it's like you're building a bridge from one chasm over a chasm from one side to the other, right? And when you first do it, it's like a string bridge. It's not very flexible. It's not very, strong. And over time, as you do it more and more, you build that up to a rope bridge. And then he'd say, then it has like the wooden slats, it's not like Indiana Jones where you're going to fall through, you wake back up again. Then finally, you're trying to develop this 8-lane highway so that you can get to that other side where the meditation is taking place. And what you do there at that point, you're able to, when you're finished, you're able to bring that back. So that success in meditation is brought back to you, but only to the degree that you can relax the physical body down, right? So as long as we're clear on that, again, the idea, and why would we do that? Why would we try to, again, relax the body down to that level? Well, we want our meditations to work. We want them to be as efficient and as effective as we can make them, right? Whether it's, you know, um, burning off stress and mental fatigue or manifestation or any other number of meditations, right? So, whatever you're doing, the more that you can relax off the physical body, that means more energy will be directed toward what you're doing in the mental realm or that energetic realm. Okay. So it's a very, not too woo-woo there. It's like a very direct line of intent. Okay. So so when we do that, when I learned it, we only learned this, what I would consider the long version, which is, they would say, okay, it's all relative, right? Everything is relativity. So they would say, in order to know what true relaxation is, you need to know what true tense is. And so they'd say, and I've seen other people do this as well. So they'd say, tense your fist and tell yourself, this is tense. Tell your mind, this is tense. And they would make you do it out loud so that there was no there was no wishy-washiness because your mind will play all kinds of tricks on you. So they'd say, this is tense. Hold it as tense as you can. And then give it the command to relax, relax, and your hand relaxes. And so, and then you would go through each segment of the body that way. So they would start literally with the smallest segment of your body. They'd start with the left big toe and they'd say, okay, tense the left big toe. You tell it to tense, and then they'd say, now give it the command to relax. And they go through each increment, and then the whole foot. And so they keep repeating and going back over it again, right? So it's like, even though you've done the toes already, when you get to the foot, it's kind of hard to tense your foot without tensing your toes over again, right? So it's like, but every time you do it, it gets that stronger impression to go down another notch. Um, and there can be some strange sensations with that too. Like you might feel that the joints might have they feel like they're popping or they feel like they're relaxing and shifting. It's subjective, right? But there is some space that's opening up there. From that Chinese medical point of view, they would say that, emotional, especially emotional stress, emotional trauma is um, it's sort of bound up in the joints. So they would spend extra time on the joints to help release that and let everything go. Okay, so more flow. Flow is life, stagnation is death. And so they would just say the more that you can get, the energy circulating, the blood will follow the energy. It's really good for arthritis and all of those things. Um, so that's basically how it works. But they would go increment to increment. So, foot and then, ankle and then again the whole foot again and then the lower leg to the knee joint. They might stay on the knee joint a couple of times and then the lower leg through the foot and then just keep going up and up all the way up the left side, down the left arm to the hand, back up the left side to half the face. And they said that's sort of like a breaking point there, right? Um, they call it long face. So they'd say you feel like you give the command to relax because it's hard to tense up your face. You might tense your jaw, but that's about it, right? So, and as they would relax it, they'd say, imagine that your face is sort of long and drooping or almost halfway down your chest, so it's very smooth and calm. And they'd say, now you're going to feel a funny sensation. It's going to feel like one side is smooth and relaxed. It's going to feel like your other side of your face is almost scrunched up, right? So again, a very subjective feeling, but it just gives you the idea of even if it isn't actually physically elongating, it feels that way, right? And so when you bring the other side to bear and you relax the right side, they sort of match up and from one side to the other. And so again, back down the right side through the right hand, back up the arm, relax the whole arm, the upper back, the lower back, down the side, abdomen, all of that through the hips, back down the right leg, knee, and end with the right big toe. So they would do that. And it would take, in the beginning, it might take 50 minutes to do all of that, right? So 50 minutes of relaxation before you even get to the meditation, whatever it was that we were doing at the time. And, there weren't many meditations that we did that went past like the hour mark. So when you first started, you might only get 10 minutes of the meditation in, but they were adamant that the most important thing was for you to relax first, and as you got better and better at it, it got quicker and quicker and quicker with a better response, actually. Because the other thing that's physiological that, they technically didn't know, but they knew that that repetition was making it easier and easier for you to go into a much more relaxed state, was that now we know that these brain pathways are being opened and they're being, initially they're being stimulated and then opened. And every time you repeat it, you're making that pathway larger and larger. So it receives the command and it opens itself up fully. So I've seen masters that do that. They can literally go into that profound relaxation in a few seconds. They give their body the command to relax and it just goes and they're in that state. So it just takes a long time, right? So there are other versions to do it, which we practice as well. So a shorter version, which we're going to do tonight, is tensing the body from the feet up in sequence, all the way up in bigger territories, not so small, all the way up to the top of the head, and then relaxing the whole thing down again. As if they said, imagine, and we've all had this sensation, I hope, of like sinking into a warm bath. at the end so that everything is just really, really getting that last layer of relax. Um, and then you proceed to whatever meditation that you're doing at the time. How am I doing, Dustin? Am I missing any bumper points or what?
Great. Doing
It's
so
okay so
so
far?
good. So good. Yeah.
He's supposed to kick me back into play if I go off target too far. Okay, so
We
that's his
practiced, so I
that's
feel
that's
like,
his main job.
yeah.
All right. So, yeah. So that's the idea because we do want our meditations to be as effective as possible every time we do something, right? And so again, if we can at least state that that it's that one-to-one relationship, the more that you relax, the better the outcome is going to be with your meditation, right? So, so let's give that a try if everybody's okay with that. And you can close your eyes, not close your eyes, whatever your preference.
Do you also want to do what we talked about at the end of the meditation?
Yeah, then we'll
Yeah.
do it at the end. And I'll just guide you through it, right? Which is we're gonna pick something. This is going to be a very impromptu meditation, sort of like a very scaled down version of what we would call burning meditation, which is how to take something that you're not happy with, either a past memory or some event in your life, or even something that you're trying to deal with now to help, dissipate that and take it away, right? So when we do that, you're just going to, after we do the relaxation, you'll be in that relaxed state. Just pick something now that you can, I'll talk you through it, but just pick something that's, that you're trying to get a little ahead of and that you don't want in your life as much or as heavy anymore. And what we'll do is after the relaxation, imagine that the pores of your body are opening, all of them. And that when you breathe in, you're breathing through all the pores of your body. Okay, it's called pore breathing. So, and then when you breathe in, it's like a golden light is coming from the outside of you, and you're breathing it into your body as if your body was hollow, like a hollow statue, just a hollow statue of Brian, and it's being breathed in and it's being charged with this light. Okay, and you keep breathing it in, and it sort of pressurizes inside your body. And when you do that, there's nothing else you have to do. When you do that, eventually that thing that you're trying to dissipate will be represented as something dark. It will come out through the pores of your skin as the golden light displaces it and pushes it out through the pores of your skin. It'll come out as a dust or a dirt or even sometimes like a tree bark, right? It'll just kind of come out and hang out on the outside of your skin. And so then you're going to imagine as you breathe in the golden light, and then as you blow the breath out, it's going to be like a red fire goes across and burns off that debris that's on the outside of your skin. And you'll do that a few times, as many times as you can feel comfortable till I say, okay. And the idea is that as you burn that off, instead of that dirt on the outside of your skin, you're going to see that golden light shining through the interior of your body to the outside of your skin. So you'll be glowing gold at the end. Okay. So very, very simple. Again, you don't have to remember what I said. I'm going to walk you through it. So, but the main thing is relax, okay, as best you can. So, and I will walk you through that relaxation, okay? So we take a couple of deep breaths in and just easily let it out. And again, a deep breath in and out. And a deep breath in and out. And now I want you to just think about your feet. and make your feet, the toes curled, as if your feet were like a bird's feet and they're like grasping a tree branch. Okay, so they're just going to curl and tighten and try to hold that and tell yourself, this is tense. And then you give yourself the command to relax. And your feet unfurl and relax. And then we move up to the calves and we make them tense. And then give them the command to relax. And then we move to the knees and make your knees tense. And now we give them the command to relax. And now we move to the thighs and make your thighs tense. And then we give them the command to relax. And now we move to the abdomen and the lower back. And we give them the command to tense. And now give them the command to relax. And now we move to the upper back and the chest. And we tell them to tense. And now we give them the command to relax. And now we move to the shoulders, the arms, and the hands, and tell them to tense. And now give them the command to relax. And now we move to the jaw and we tense the jaw. And now give it the command to relax. And give your brow, the top of your head, the back, give it the command to relax. And the whole body relaxes from head to toe. And if you notice any area that's still slightly tense, give it the command to relax again. And now imagine your body slipping into a very warm bath, toes and feet first, and just sliding into the bath. And as the warm water covers you, you relax. And now imagine that you're in an empty space. And with every breath you take, that you're breathing not just through your nose, through your mouth, but through every pore of your body. Breathing in and out through all the pores of your body. And now imagine that you're surrounded with a golden light everywhere you look. It's all around you. And as you breathe in through the pores of your body, you're breathing this golden light into the core of your body. And with each breath, it fills you more and more. And as it comes in, it builds a pressure inside of your body and displaces anything from the past, near or far, that you'd like to dissipate. It displaces it as something dark, like dirt, to the outside of your body, on the surface of your skin. Breathing in the yellow light, and the yellow light pushes that out to the surface of your body. And now, as you breathe out, the breath out represents, and you can imagine, a red flame that moves over the surface of your body and burns off the dirt that's accumulated on the outside, which represents some form of stress or mental fatigue. Breathe in the yellow. It displaces the stress to the outside of the body. And on the breath out, a red flame moves over the surface and burns it away. And each time you do that, you see more and more of that golden light shining from the core of your body through to the outside. And now with one last breath of bringing in the golden light, slowly come back to the room. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, sort of shift in your seat. And there we have it. Okay. So, very short version of the relaxation, but um, over time, even that one will really help, right? So again, the longer version would take more time than we have. 40 to 50 minutes when you're not used to doing it, if you go through each increment of the body, and maybe even spend more time on the joints, you know, if you feel that there's extra tension there or whatever. The more that you do that, the faster it gets, the more the more extreme it gets too, the more relaxed you'll get. Until finally, it's like you'll start to notice that certain areas of your body, they don't feel like they're really there anymore, right? That's one of the tactile sensations goes away, right? And so again, with the eyes closed, it's easy to sort of dissipate the sight, right? But eventually, if you're going through that enough, it will eventually come to the point where, in that profound relaxed state, your body's asleep, but your mind is aware and awake, right? So there are a lot of methods for doing that, but this is the first step, is like going through the step-by-step process of relaxation of the small parts of the physical body.
Perfect. So, we did want to have time to take some questions. If you guys have any questions, we can do that. I'm going to pin Brian's video so you will not appear in the recording that we're doing. Um, so, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat, or you can use the Zoom um, controls to raise your hand and we can unmute you. The way to raise your hand in Zoom is there's a little button that says
Wave.
wave. Hi. Or you could just like hold up your hand and just be like, oh, I have a question.
Always good for those of us that aren't that technically oriented.
I think it's under React. There's like a heart symbol and where it says React, and I think you can go click on that and then you can raise your hand there, I believe. I don't think I can do it because I'm the host, maybe. I don't know. Zoom expert here. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Dustin can ask questions because
Yeah.
he's used to doing that with me.
When you're tensing and releasing,
Uh-huh.
just a quick question.
Sure.
Part of when you say to tense yourself, can you? I remember learning one method of holding your breath, and then as you release and you say relax, you let the breath out. Is that just another way of doing it, or do you not recommend that?
We don't usually recommend holding your breath. Because the idea, I mean, there are techniques to holding your breath, like the fourfold breath, right? Where you're breathing in for four,
Mhm.
and holding it for four, and then breathing out for four and holding it at the bottom for four. It's a different methodology of breathing. It has a different effect on the body and the mind as well. So, but during this, where I'm just doing the conscious relaxation, and then the meditation at the end, um, we're trying not to hold our breaths during that time. So you don't want to, I mean, it is a standard thing, when people get tense, they tend not to breathe very well, right? Or they breathe very shallowly, or they hold their breath, right? So the idea is that we're trying to bypass all this. One of the things that is the benefits of training this, uh, besides, a better effect in your meditations or whatever else that you're doing, is through our normal waking day, right? There are plenty of things that come up that might just, like either shock you or startle you or any of those things. And you want to get to a point where it doesn't make you freeze up, it doesn't make you tense, right? The first thing that should enter your mind is relax, you know, let yourself drop down, let yourself relax. Don't let that flow stop within you, right? You want it to keep moving because that's when you think most clearly. That's when you react most clearly, right? It's when we freeze up and tense up that it has something even psychologically that it does something to us when we freeze in fear, right? It's the first response, right? The deer in the headlight look, right? Something that's so strange it can't understand what's going on. It freezes in the road when it's absolutely capable of jumping out of the way. So we don't want to be in that same situation. And we are geared for that naturally. So the idea with this training, like anything, is to sort of help our evolutionary stage to move past that point. So if any time you have something in the day that sort of interrupts your normal state or your normal flow, anything that could happen like that. It could be a phone call that's not quite so nice or whatever it is. As soon as it happens, as soon as you realize you're moving into that place, first it's recognizing it. The very next thing should be give yourself the command to relax and let yourself sink down a bit. Okay, so you just tell it to relax and you move down. You don't want to hold your breath. So because one of the axioms is good training, good response, bad training, bad response, right? So you don't want to train something in one way and then try to do it in a different way in real life, right? So if your response is to hold your breath and then relax, you're always going to like go to that holding your breath first and then relaxing, and that's going to just sort of interrupt the flow of the process. So I personally wouldn't do the holding the breath thing. Like I said, there are other techniques, breathing techniques, where you do hold your breath, but this isn't one of them. So breathe in through it, tense, then relax. And, the tense and relax, you're going to build that pathway over a certain amount of time. It's going to get easier and easier and easier. And when you tell yourself, to relax, when you give that command to relax, when you do that in through the course of the day, here and there, you'll start training that pathway to open up and to be larger, right? So it'll be a more immediate response until it's almost an automatic response. Anytime that something sort of like, you know, gives me a hiccup in the day or something like that, my first response, whether I'm on the phone, whether I'm talking to a patient, whether I'm doing whatever, it's relax, right? So that, I'm at my peak of letting the energy in my body move around me in a perfect flow, and to be able to, think clearly as well and not overreact to anything. Um, I'm trying not to jar myself through the day, right? I want it to just be this smooth, continuous flow through my regular physical day. Because if I can do that more and more, I mean, that's one of the benefits of having any kind of practice, right? It's like, yeah, it's very nice to do meditation, but what's it doing for you in the course of your average day, right? If it's not making you better in the normal day, then what good is it, right? It's just another way to relax. It's another sort of just a technique. Instead of watching a movie or reading a book, I'm just doing meditation, right? We know there's other physiological benefits to this, but it should be more than that, right? All of these practices should help you through the course of your normal day. And if it's not doing that, you might want to look around for other other techniques to help you do that. Because how often are we awake and doing other things? I mean, at least 8 hours, if not 16 hours a day. So that's the majority of the time. You want to have that flow going as much of that time as possible. Hi, Janie. Had to say it. Haven't seen you in forever. Oh my God. Oh, that's great.
Nice to see an old face.
I know, right? Oh yeah, yeah. Emphasis on old. It's been a long time. Oh, it's
It
great to
has,
see
it
you.
has. I'm appreciating the refresher. It's
Oh, it's
wonderful.
it's great to see you.
You
It's
too.
it's it's awesome. So, um, any questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna have to kick Dustin into the under the bus and let him ask some or whatever, or bring up any points that I missed along the path there for emphasis.
Yeah, I'm just giving a little space just in case anybody wants to chime in. And I think we changed it so that people can unmute themselves if you
Okay.
want.
I have one question. Can you
Yeah, go
address
ahead.
anxiety? Because my level of anxiety, I don't think I used to have this kind of anxiety, but
Yeah, sure.
lately with everything that's going on, it's like,
Sure,
whoa.
sure. I mean, one of the things is, you know, a lot of times, I don't think that in the West, even for Western teachers, they don't really, they'll go through these practices, but they don't appreciate um, how much the symbology of what you're imaging at the time affects us physically. really. I mean, we think it's all in our head, right? And on a certain level, it is, right? But we know that, look, here's the thing, right? Like, we know that from science, right? Like, athletes that, you know, practice mentally going through their routine over and over again has just a little bit less than when they do it physically, right? We know that. They measure that. Like they've measured people with all the, contraptions and whatever, and they go out and they run the hurdles. And so, and when they just sit in a chair and they have them all hooked up again and they just imagine themselves doing it, that on a very low level, but all of those muscles are still triggering. And so all of those things, all the physiological responses are just a little bit lower, but they're exactly the way they were when they were doing it physically. So there is this input. And so we can use that to our advantage too. So when I talk to patients about anxiety, a lot of times I'll tell them, there's a couple things that you can do at the moment that it's happening. You can do this. You can do this simple breathing technique, and we have everybody that's listening to this call has done this when they were babies, and they've seen it if they've seen babies going through like a crying jag or whatever, like when they're really not just when they're like, I'm cranky, but when they're really, really crying, right? And they really cry and then they get worn out, right? And then when they get worn out, there's always that telltale sign, right? Like just imagine seeing that baby, and then all of a sudden the baby will go, and that's the end, right? That's the end. That's the telltale sign. Well, there's a neurologist out at Stanford that researched that, and that's actually what that does is it triggers some kind of endorphin in the brain that actually calms all the circuitry down like instantly, like instantly. We always thought it was just something that babies did, right? That they were exhausted or something like that. But it's not. It's actually a physiological response to reroute all of those, you know, uh, um, over exaggerated stimulus down. And you can use it too. So I'm always teaching this to my patients that have anxiety. I'm like, if you feel yourself starting to get ramped up in that territory, it's like three quick inhalations on top of each other and then a long pause out. And you can do it a few times, but it's literally that. It's just, and it's so strange, right? Because you'll even feel inside your head or in your scalp that something is almost like a tingling sensation that's moving down. And that's those endorphins being released to calm down all of those circuitries. And that would be right on, like the very initial thing that I would do. And for those of you that have done, the burning meditation or qigong or any of those things, right? It's like there's a part of that where we're rooting ourselves to the ground, right? We imagine that there are roots coming from the bottoms of our feet and going into the ground and sort of converging into a V. And that's a really great practice to ground you even more than just like, okay, I've got to breathe, I've got to relax, count to 10, do all those things. So it's those a couple of times of that three inhalations and then a long exhalation, relaxed. And then I just imagine that, again, without doing the whole routine of the burning meditation, you can literally take this part and just imagine that the roots are growing out of the bottoms of your feet. That imagery, not just the imagery, but you know, the energy goes where your mind goes, right? So when your mind is going to the body, it's almost impossible to do that without thinking about it, right? So it's like when I'm thinking, oh, there's roots growing out of the soles of my feet and they're going down into the earth and rooting me to the earth. It's like your energy goes to that place, right? So without having to use any contraptions, because there's all kinds of ways to do that, right? But and the spur of the moment when you're someplace and you just have to, sort of ground yourself, imagining those roots coming out and burrowing deep into the earth, and where are they going and how are they going down? How deep can I make them go? It pulls your mind to the soles of your feet. You feel that little bit of stimulus down there. Well, that means that the energy in your body is literally, you know, moving down to that area and grounding it out. That first point in acupuncture, the first point on the kidney channel, which is sort of like the the storehouses of your energy, right? It's right on the sole of the foot, as if this was my foot and I went from the ball of my foot, you'd fall into a little divot, right? Just below on the sole of your foot right there. Well, that's the first point on the kidney channel, and that's what they think is connecting you to the earth, right? Connecting you to the energy of the earth. So anything that will bring your mind to that spot, and the roots are just a really good way of doing that. It sends that excess energy down and sort of drains the excess out of you. So I would try those two techniques and see if that doesn't, sort of help you sort of ground it out, because it's just when we feel anxiety or any emotion, even good emotions, right? It's like the reason we have a visceral response to that, something that physically feels, either good or bad or interesting or funny or not so funny, it's just that energy is sort of stuck in that territory and looking for a way out, but it's not grounded, right? We need 2 points on that, the positive and negative pole, right? So the reason that we feel that tightness in the chest or butterflies in our stomach or whatever it is, that's just the energy sort of batting around in that area and looking for a way out. Well, we need to give it a way out, right? So it's like when you do that technique of just thinking about the roots or the first couple of breaths in and then out, and as that starts to settle, and then put the roots down, guide it into the earth as deep as you can, as if you're standing and that you're just rooted to the spot, and that energy, the longer you can keep your mind in those territories, um, it's going to drain. It's not going to take away what you need. It's only going to take away the excess, and and whatever excess you're able to give back or give into the earth, it's going to go to somebody else who needs it, right? That's all. So it's not like you're wasting it. You'll never drain yourself or any kind of thing like that. It's literally just you've built it up in a place and it's looking to find a way to ground itself out, just like a lightning rod would take energy from the air and drive it into the ground, right? So I would try that and see how that does. But the three breath thing is really interesting. That's just research that came out maybe a year ago at the most. And it's very effective. Very, very effective. And don't wait for something to happen to try it. Try it. Practice it a few times. And I'm telling you, you're going to feel this weird kind of tingling in you, almost like in your scalp, but more inside. And that's those endorphins being, released, and those circuitry, that circuitry being sort of put more into a relaxed state. It's very, very quick. It's very fascinating how well that works. So give that a try and see.
Um, Jenna asks, do you feel there is a best time of day to meditate? I find I have more time in the evening, but notice myself dozing off at times. Any tricks?
Any tricks? Sure. Um, it's tough, right? I mean, I've done meditation at, literally every time of the day that anybody could think of. So, um, and depending on what I'm doing, I seem to have, it's easier for me. Um, like if I'm doing burning meditation or something like that, I'm gonna do, I usually do that in the morning. For me, that works the best. Um, Anytime in the morning, for me, the earlier the better, but to each their own. You kind of have to play around with it and see what's gonna be the best for you. If I'm doing, let's say, other types of meditation, um, like a middle pillar or a chanting, anything like that, then usually late morning, early afternoon is the best for me. Again, this all varies depending on the person. And the more, let's say, um, even more esoteric types of meditation, traveling meditation and things and that type of thing. I usually do those very, very, very late in the evening. I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek because it's more like 2 to 3 in the morning. Okay, so that's when I get my best response from that because that's the most quiet time in the day. Even the animals are kind of asleep at that time. So it's that's the easiest for me. So those are the times that I tend to track toward over the years that I've been doing this. Um, and but it does vary. If I need to, if the only time I have is in the evening, I'm doing that. But if I have my preference, then, again, with things that are steady, like burning meditation, which is to take away stress and mental fatigue, then I'm going to do those. For me, first thing in the morning is usually the best. Any tricks about falling asleep? You know, I'm so controversial with that stuff. It's like for me, that's where espresso comes in, so it's like I don't usually, after all these years, all these decades, I, I don't, I don't have the tendency to fall asleep anymore, so it's just part of what I've been doing for so long that um, meditation is like another form of exercise for me. So I don't tend to fall asleep during it. But I get it. I mean, I used to here and there. Um, I'll tell you this story that some of my older students know, but I think it's still funny, to this day, because the way one of my original teachers taught me to not fall asleep, because I'd be working hard and I'd be doing all these things, and I'm really late nights and trying to get everything done, and then we'd come into the temple first thing in the morning to do this meditation, and it was an hour-long meditation, and the lights were dim. It was only had a candle and the incense, and it was warm and it was cozy, and and it was quiet. So and I would fall asleep, and so he's like, "Oh, that's okay. This is how we're going to cure that." And so he would give me he'd pull in this big round rock, and he would put it on the floor instead of, because we use benches, right? So no backs or chairs that you couldn't use the back of. And so, it's kind of comfortable. And so he just gave me this rock and just a flat board that I had to balance on the edge, on the top of the rock, and sit on that and get my balance that way, so that um and the first time I started to doze, of course, I'm on the floor, right? So I was so damn embarrassed after that that I never fell asleep again. So it was like, but he still made me use it for, I don't know, a month or two before he allowed me to go back to the bench, because it was just, they weren't, I mean, they weren't mean, but they weren't like the kindly old sages that you see on TV, right? It was like just sort of like this is just the practical way that they would teach you not to fall asleep. Because if you had to keep your mind at least awake and aware enough to keep your balance on a board, on a rock, while you were doing the meditation, and they're telling you to relax, right? It's like, okay, that's a lot of stuff to think about all at the same time. But it was really good training, because after that I never fell asleep again. It was well worth it. But um I always like to bring that story up because I always thought it was pretty funny. I mean, I didn't think it was funny at the time, believe me. I was embarrassed. I was, oh God, I was so embarrassed, Here I am splayed out on the floor, and I could see people like smirking, but they weren't, their eyes were still closed. They were trying to do their meditation, but they knew it was I was the only one in there on a board on a rock. So uh, you know, so they had some good laughs over that. And in the end I did too. But so yeah, I mean, anything that you can do, don't make yourself too comfortable, but don't make yourself so uncomfortable that you can't relax. Right. And truly, I do sometimes, I'll have a cup of coffee, cup of tea, espresso, whatever, before I do my meditations. Um,
Would you also say that you tend to do like yoga or qigong or things like that, like before a
Oh
practice or any
yeah,
type of
absolutely,
exercise?
absolutely. It's always really good when you're practicing relaxation. Look, it's still the relativity, right? So a lot of times we would do physical activity before we would do meditation. So it's a good point, right? So it's like because then, your body's active, because after, think about it this way. When you exercise, your body becomes tense, right? You're doing stuff. You're flexing your muscles, you're running, you're walking, you're doing all of these things, and the body's very active. The natural response when you get done exercise is to relax, right? And so whether that's sitting down, getting a drink, relaxing a bit, changing it up, right? You don't just keep going all day long. You do tend to relax. To what degree? So we tend to pick that up and sort of extend it even more. So if you do your physical activity first and then go into, your meditation or your relaxation exercises, it's going to just follow that natural flow and extend them even more, right? So it's the same thing as tense and relax, right? It's just that now it's a whole body workout, tense, whatever, walking, doesn't matter what it is. And then the natural response is going to be for you to relax after that. And so you're picking up on that and then pushing it even further and making it a conscious relaxation. Okay. So that's a good point, Dustin.
I think the other thing would be like making sure you're doing it on an empty stomach too, because like um, that'll naturally draw the energy to your gut instead of your
Right.
mind basically, and
Absolutely.
make you feel a little logy. I know that I've been really adamant to put several hours between when I eat and when I meditate, if it's a meditation later in the day, and that's actually been helping me a lot as well.
And it varies from person to person, right? So it's like, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, we used to eat right before we'd do martial arts training, which is insane when I think about it now. I mean, this was not, people doing forms in a gym. I mean, we were bashing each other and doing really heavy kind of labor and hitting things and, being hit. And so it's like, to have a full stomach to do that. I mean, I don't know what the hell we were thinking, to be honest with you. We were young men and we were hungry. We would just eat no matter what and we would go and do it. Now, I wouldn't even think about doing that. I wouldn't I wouldn't eat and then immediately go down and work out on a heavy bag, let alone, with another person, So um, it varies from person to person, you want to be comfortable, but you don't want to be uh, overdone, right? So it's like a little something just to sort of stave off. I'm not saying drink 12 cups of coffee before you meditate. You're not going to get anywhere, you know, but the idea is like the same thing with food, right? Something that's maybe just a little something to tide you over. It's not going to take a lot of digestive stress because you don't want to be starving either. If your stomach's growling while you're trying to relax, you're not going to be thinking about relaxing anymore, right? So it's just a bit of common sense there as well. And everybody will be slightly different in that realm. So, yeah,
Um, Pat has a great question. He said, "Do you have any tips for improving or extending visualization?" Which I
sure.
think is like a good point in general, because like when we first started the call, we were talking about how relaxation is important for any meditation or any esoteric practice. Well, a lot of the things that you do in any meditation or esoteric practice is, some type of visualization, or
Sure.
even bringing your awareness more precisely to something that's outside of the normal range of just feeling like you're in your head, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, there are two things that we used to do. Well, like I'll give you two traditional ones and then one that's, that we made up over time that's not traditional. So the first one was light a single candle, a pretty dark room. Doesn't have to be completely dark. Single candle, and you focus on the candle, eyes open, obviously. You're looking at the candle, looking at the candle. Give it, 20, 30 seconds. You don't have to stare, you can blink, right? But you're just focusing on the candle itself. And then close your eyes. You'll see the after image of the candle, right? Very standard. And you're just trying to hold it there and then try to fill in as if it was like a coloring book, right? So it's like it's there. If the candle's red, it's red. If the candle's white, you're going to make it white and hold the flame there. And you're holding that as long as you can. As soon as the image starts to shift or turn or grow or shrink or change in any way, you open your eyes and go back to looking at the candle. And then once you have it again for 20 seconds, 15, 20 seconds, then close your eyes, do the same thing again. You'll see that your ability to increase and hold that image stable increases over time. Again, it takes time, but that's the way we would increase it. The other test that we would do is you'd make just a piece of paper, a card or whatever, not too small, and you'd color it blue, and then you'd put usually we used three different ones, all, blue background, and then a black number 3 on one, a black number 7 on one, and a black number 9 on one. So a black number on a blue background. And again, same process as with the candle. The idea is that you sort of stare at, not unblinking, but you just focus on the number 3, let's say, on the blue background. And then after 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, close your eyes and you'll see the after image. And it should be the black number 3 on the blue background. And again, you're holding it in that configuration exactly the way that you saw it as long as possible. And as soon as it starts to shift or change or shrink or change colors or flip or it does anything that changes it, you open your eyes and go back to that again. And don't be discouraged. It takes a really long time to do this, okay? Like if people are being honest, and really this is true. If people are being honest, like the ability for you to hold that number, let's just say the number 3, the ability for you to hold it exactly as it is, if you can get 2 seconds, you're doing really, really well. Okay, as an initial start, you know, the idea being that to build up to the point where you can hold that almost indefinitely, you know, that takes a long time, but it's a steady incremental process of being able to do that. Um, the non-traditional one that I usually use on most people when they tell me they can't visualize is I always ask them, do you own a car? Almost everybody says yes, right? And I'm just like, okay, describe the interior of your car to me. You know, I don't want to know the make or model or anything, but you know, what color is the steering wheel? What does it look like? What's the and as soon as they start to describe it, because most people can, right? Like, what's the color of the start button, or however you do, where's the radio? You know, as soon as they start doing that, the only way they can actually tell me that is if they are imaging it in their mind, right? So they're describing something that they actually know. So, and that just shows them that they can visualize. It's just a matter of, I think a lot of this stuff comes down to degrees, right? Like a lot of people, they're expecting to, they're expecting that everybody else is visualizing as if it was your eyes were open and you're looking around the room, like that clear. That takes a really long time to be able to do that. You're talking about visionary states, right? That's why they're called visionary states, right? It's like that's like a lucid dream, okay? To be able to visualize in that level of, in that degree, that takes an extensive period of time to be able to achieve that, okay? So don't be fooled. Very few people can do that. And people that have been doing it for decades have a hard time doing that. So, you know, work on it with those small incremental things. You'll get a lot farther in that, and then, you'll start to see, your dreams will become sharper. Things, your imagery with whatever meditations you're doing will become sharper. All of those things will start to go, increase from those simple exercises like visualizing the, imaging the three, the seven, the nine, or the candle, or, the car interior, or any interior in your room, right? Like there's lots of simple exercises that you can build up in yourself. Like a lot of times, I'll just stand in a room that I know, like this room, right? And and then I try to remember, uh, you know, what is behind me, right? Like there's a bookcase. What kind of bookcase? How many shelves? Where are the books located on the shelves? Where's the fireplace? What color are the stones? What color is the fireplace itself? All of these things. What's the picture? What does it look like? Where is it placed in the room? You're trying to identify all of these things. Well, that's a form of visualization, right? So, and you get better and better at it as time goes on, right? It's not like when I'm doing that, I'm just thinking of a paper list of the things that are in the room behind me, right? That's not the same thing. I'm imagining myself looking behind me and telling myself, here's all the things that are in the room behind me, right? But it's from a visualizing standpoint. So there are lots of little tricks to doing that. And it does, again, most of those things have come, my ability to do it has come from those simple, simple exercises with the candle or with the numbers. So that's how I would do that.
I was just gonna say, should we do a quick test where you can describe what's behind you without turning around? No, no,
Let's,
no.
how
I'm
long
kidding.
do you
I'm
have?
kidding. Yeah,
It's a pretty big list.
yeah, it is. All the books
All the books
in
in
order.
order.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, when you were, feel free to, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Um, there's no bad questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes we're a little shy because we're like, oh, nobody wants to hear about that. But we do. It's all good. Um, I was thinking, while we wait for any other questions, um, when you were talking about the visualization, one of the things that came up for me was I was thinking about like the relevance of being able to do that. you know like it sounds like something that's you have to put in a certain amount of time to develop that capacity. And so maybe you could speak from your own experience and how has that benefited you to, like, whether in your physical life, your meditations and your spiritual practice, like how has that how has that served you, actually putting all the time in that you have to increasing that ability?
Well, I think it makes it easier um, to really be immersed in your meditative practice or any esoteric practice that you're doing, right? Because if you could, I mean, imagine like for those of us that remember things like Star Trek, right, where they have the holodeck, right? It's like they were always running simulations there, right? Like it's a hologram. So they would set up the program and then they would interact with the things that were in there, whether it was a landscape or whatever. So much easier to be in that and have a more profound experience if you're immersed in those situations, right? So, if you're thinking about, you know, what would be easier if you could literally see or feel that you were floating in, an empty space and that this golden light was surrounding you and that every time you breathed in, it was being pulled in through, you could see it going through the pores of your skin and going into the core of your body and filling you up completely and then pushing out or displacing this stress and mental fatigue to the outside of you and this red flame coming through and burning it off, right? So you wouldn't have to work that hard at it, right? It wouldn't just be your imagination. It would be something that you could actually sort of immerse all your senses in, right? Like you might feel the heat of that. You might feel some tingling as the golden light's going in and the pressure of it building up inside of you and literally pushing out the stress and mental fatigue. Um, it would be as that immersion happens, through visualization or whatever, it just makes it more profound, right? It makes it more visceral to you, right? So again, we're visual creatures for the most part, right? We maneuver through this world primarily through sight, right? So um, all the other ones sort of take a bit of a back seat. I mean, if we don't have sight, we maneuver with our hearing, we maneuver with our tactile sense, right? Or a combination of those things. And yes, they do increase. If you reduce one, that energy has to go someplace and you do, those others get boosted up. But primarily for most people, it's sense of visualization, right? So, if we can transfer as much of that capacity into the things that we're doing in our mind, in our invisible world, then that imagery as it comes alive will just immerse us more deeply into the rest of it, right? The rest of the sensory apparatus. It will sort of make it more profound for us, and we'll get a deeper sense of that. We won't have to work so hard at it. We won't have to take so much on, let's say, trust, right? It's just like, you know, if you're walking in the rain, you're walking in the rain, right? If you're imagining walking in the rain, there's a little bit less, right? Because you're not feeling the drops on your skin. You're not seeing the rain around you. You're not doing that. But if I can immerse myself and get my visualization up to that point, it's like I'm having a visionary experience, literally. And so whatever I'm doing in that sense just becomes much more real to me at that time. And it has a much more profound effect on me. And if it has a profound effect on me, it's going to have a profound effect on my life.
Anyone else have any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Could you explain what's happening with chanting?
Mhm.
I used to think that when I would chant, it just took so much conscious effort that,
Hmm.
like with a Masterland chanting meditation
Oh,
recently,
sure, sure, sure.
I would chant for a while and then I go quiet and let the sound wash over me. But recently I was using my oximeter to check my pulse or my heart rate.
Right.
And I just, for the first time, thought, oh, it's actually going down while I'm chanting. And so I just like, I always thought it as such a conscious activity.
Oh, sure.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, chanting is a fascinating territory, right? Because your voice, um, like when we think of energy centers or chakras, right? That's like the one that we're most, the one that, and again, different perspectives from different traditions, right? But the one that's the most elusive and everybody sort of bypasses is the one in the throat. And yet it's the one that we interact, at least from a Taoist perspective and a Hermetic perspective. We interact with the world through this. You know, we can talk to people, right? Tell them our ideas, get them on the same page, hopefully, right? Or, tell them what we intend to do. Um, and through the vocalization, they think that um, the the vowel sounds are things that accumulate energy and pull them more to us and put us entrained with that more, and that the consonant sounds are the ones that shape the energy. So it's almost like the harder the consonant sound, the more hard the energy is. So like it would be difference between like S, which is a very soft sort of sound and can be rose up or down or whatever, as opposed to like a K sound, which is very hard, right? And so all of those things. So when we vocalize, we're blending both the consonant sounds in some traditions and the vowel sounds. So we're accumulating energy, shaping it, and then sending it out. But when we're sending it out, there's a feedback loop that happens with that. And so we're entraining the rest of the cells in our body are vibrating to that the longer that we can sustain that. Um, and that's the idea. And so if we're using sacred sounds that are supposedly, you know, the blueprints of the universe or the blueprints of or saying certain names, right, that will resonate with us. And I always tell people, even if you don't have a traditional history with that, it's like, um, here's a really simple one to try. Again, doesn't matter what tradition you're in. It's just, you know, if you use the traditional pronunciation of the name Michael, it, like Michael, right? Michael. If you chant that, it's hard for me to even say it without, kind of spilling the beans. Uh, Try it. When you think you need strength, try chanting the name Mikhail and hold it, chant it. So it's like Mikhail and just hold it and bring it through, right? And just keep doing it. Do it 9 times, 18 times, 20 times, whatever. Try to do that and relax in between, right? So, and you can do, what we would call extoning, which is the verbalization out, and intoning, meaning you hear your own voice singing it back to you, right? So extoning would be the physical singing out, and then on the next breath in, you imagine your own voice singing it back to your core. And that's that round that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You'll have an experience. I guarantee. Do it several times. You will have an experience that will show you the power of the voice and chanting. You don't have to use a foreign word. You don't have to use any of that. Literally, names are extremely powerful, and you can even do that with your own name and see what happens, right? It's a very profound effect. It doesn't take a master with a, special mantra or any of that. There are all of that, but like you literally can do it with your own name, or you can do it with some of these, Michael, Raphael, it's like these are all you need healing, chant the name Raphael with that intent, you know, I need healing for this and chant that name. You'll have a profound experience. Yeah. There's a great book, if you want to go a little bit deeper in that. Um, the guy's name is Jocelyn Godwin, and it's the seven sounds, seven vowels.
I'll get it, Bry. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
And he's got several books. Some of them are very complex, but that one's a really simple, good one. And yeah, Dustin's so great with this stuff because he'll just throw it up on a link on there. And but it goes through more of that at a little bit, more than what I'm telling you now. But he's an excellent practitioner, and he's also a music professor at one of the local colleges around Albany, I think. So, but his whole profession has been around breaking down music and, yeah, Mystery of the Seven Vowels in theory and practice. It's a great book. It's very small, but really will put you in the right place. And there's plenty of those things. Jonathan Goldman, one of the masters of in the West, to be able to do those things and sort of explain them in a good way as well. But that'll give you a really nice sort of concise way of thinking about it. So no matter what you're chanting, you'll have an understanding of how these things help you to entrain to a specific intent.
I love that you touched on healing because one of the things that we wanted to mention was just like the health benefits of the relaxation practice, like
Hmm.
reducing blood pressure and cortisol and things like that. And when we were discussing it earlier, you made this really you shared a powerful example where your teacher was saying like you can't physically hold tense forever. Like you can't just like keep holding it. And there was an analogy there about a light switch and something. I
Right,
feel like that
right.
would be really appropriate for you to share.
Yeah, he'd say, cortisol, cortisol building adrenaline, it's like it's used like a light switch. When you need the light, you can flick it on and turn it on. But when people have trauma in their lives or sustained trauma over time, like these vets that come back after, multiple tours or whatever, it's like that cortisol, it's the light switch is flipped on so often that he said it's like turning the light switch on and then breaking the toggle off. So it's just constantly bleeding into the system constantly. And so, but you can't stay in that fight or flight for an extended period of time without your body breaking down. And so now we know, there's a lot of supplements and other things to help reduce cortisol. And but conscious relaxation actually reduces cortisol levels as well. And so that helps to reset that fight or flight, back to a normal level. So it doesn't make you so fatigued that you can't get out of your own way. It literally just brings it down so that when you need it, it's there, but the rest of the time the switch is off so that, it's not just constantly bleeding into your system because you can't sustain that. It will wear you out over time. And conscious relaxation is one of the best ways to sort of knock that down naturally.
Nice. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Or jump in. But one thing I thought we could share before we close up the call tonight is just actually um, in the To Be Silent membership, we do calls like this every other week on Wednesday nights. And so last night we had a live call, and one of the things that I was asking Brian about was I was saying how um, you know, I was saying it's kind of a long story, but one of Brian's teachers was kind of commenting when he was younger on how for Brian, what they would call the veil is thinner in the sense that, um, the energetic or that like invisible aspect is a little bit more accessible for him. And I was saying, well, like if somebody was felt more like rigid, let's say, and more like that there was that veil was much thicker for them because a lot of the things that we do are have uh, maybe we want the practical benefits, but I think a lot of us also feel the calling for a more expanded perceptual experience of life. And that was kind of the foundation of a lot of the courses that we've developed at To Be Silent, like the seeing program or the dreaming program, the lucid dreaming program, and things of that nature. So I was saying to him, like, what would you do if somebody was just like really rigid? How would you get them like to thin that veil for themselves if they weren't naturally open, like in the way that your teacher said that you were? And I felt like your response to that question was actually um really profound for me, and also just kind of like appropriate given questions about like anxiety or stress and things like that. And I think if you wouldn't mind sharing what you said to me the other night, I feel like
Oh,
that might be a
sure, sure,
nice way
sure.
to kind of
Yep.
finish up tonight.
He would say, use what you already have. Like we're already physical creatures, right? And again, everything is relative. So if we're trying to break into this more numinous or invisible territory, then, why not you know, use your ability, use your senses on this side to a more practical benefit and to make them a little more extreme, right? So get into nature, you know, I'm very fortunate because I live in the middle of the woods. But for everybody else, I mean, you can find nature around you, no matter if you go to an arboretum, if you're in the city or any place like that. And, and you would go in for short periods of time and spend some time in there. Not just spend time in there, but you'd go there, find a location that's safe and you know, and just do your gazing practice if it's a visual thing, right? So it's like you're relaxing your gaze to the periphery and holding that. And, if it's listening, you're closing your eyes and focusing on the sounds and, everything from the rustling of the leaves to little critters running around to the wind to whatever, right? So, and with all of them, tactile sense, you're touching the rocks or touching the branches, touching the trees. Um, and really focusing on each sense at a time. And because you're doing that and enhancing the experience of it here in the physical, it'll be that much more powerful on the other side too. So it's sort of like trying to balance it out on both sides. I see so many people trying to get to these other things, and yet they're they're zombies here, right? So it's like the way to really sort of promote getting into those other places or making it even easier to get to those lucid dream states or astral projection states or whatever, right? It's like to engage in the physical here, make this more exquisite, and you'll have the corresponding resonance on the other side as well, right? So, and it does knock down the cortisol levels. It does knock down heart rate, blood pressure, because there's nothing more balanced than nature. Everything entrains to the strongest resonance in the area, right? If I leave my field fallow year by year, the forest is going to encroach and it's going to, overrun it, right? And bring it back to a forest because there's way more forest around me than there is open field. Okay. So this is just part of nature, right? And so, I'm telling patients all the time that have anxiety or depression or whatever to just literally, it doesn't cost you anything to walk in nature for 20 minutes. Just walk there. Doesn't matter if it's paved and an arboretum, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go, bushwhacking across the mountains, right? It's like literally, immerse yourself in an area that is completely balanced and you will entrain to that balance. You know, you want to make it better, control your breathing while you're there, make it focused. If you're by yourself, you can do your chants, right? Just intoning the vowel sounds will do it, right? It's all of those things are just easy. And the hardest thing of doing it is just doing it. But once you notice the effects of it, you nobody's going to have to hold your feet to the fire, right? It's like you're going to want to do that. So, I would engage it that way. And that really, as a very young child, I was, constantly in the woods. I mean, we didn't live in a neighborhood. We lived in the country. No neighbors. I had my siblings and that was it. So I was in the woods all the time because that's all we had. It's not like I chose to do it. That's just what it was, right? So I didn't notice anything different about that. And that my grandparents and my parents never really squashed our imaginations, right? They were always sort of engaging us when we would come back. And so, you know, I found myself, without my siblings around, like laying under a tree or, what I know is gazing now, but like just letting my eyes drift to the periphery and looking at that and seeing how, the shadows changed, the shapes changed, things started to slow down, things shifted. I had strange feelings around that. It's like, or listening to things, and hearing other sounds, seeing other things in the woods. Um, it's one of those things where if you go with that intent to help yourself balance, you know, it will happen, and to enhance it, and that will enhance the other side too, your meditative practices, your esoteric practices, whatever they are. Um, So engage that on a regular basis and you'll see. You do it. Give yourself, geez, I mean, if I were gonna, you know, put my little stamp or guarantee on it, I'd have to say, do it consistently. 20 minutes in the woods for 42 days. You'll have the realization yourself. It'll probably happen before that, but I guarantee you, if you do that consistently, you will you will notice a big difference in your life.
Really like that you threw in the 42-day thing. That's good.
Well, that's when I know that you'll hit a wall, and if you go through it, you're going to come out on the other side with something profound. 30 days doesn't quite cut it anymore. All
So,
right.
thank you guys so much for coming out and doing a practice with us tonight and asking some great questions. Um, I'm going to put this link in the chat for the guided meditation section of our website. Um, there is a conscious relaxation guided meditation program that's very inexpensive. That where that's like a recording of Brian going through a long and short version of the relaxation practice. There's also a practice on the guided meditation programs called the burning meditation, which is a much more like extensive version of the burning practice that we did tonight. That was like a very like a scaled down version of the broader burning practice. Um, and then I'll also just put a link to our homepage, which has some more information about our membership program, which is essentially like we have a community on a platform called School where members can share and ask questions. And then we do live calls such as this, like twice a week or twice a month, sorry. And then I also hold a live call once a month. And so it's I feel like one of the things we wanted to do tonight was just kind of give everybody an experience of what that was like and share and show up and say hi and meet you guys. So a great like next step for you if you're curious about that would be to go to the main page of the website, and you can, if you'd like, you can book a call with me and we'll just talk for an hour. If you have questions, I'll show up and you can ask me. You can have a conversation and you can see if um, being in the membership might be of benefit to you. And yeah, I think that's about it. And also, if you are of the mind to just jump in and try it, there's like also a 30-day money back guarantee. So you can just like try it for a month and see if you like it. And I think that's about it for tonight. So I hope you all enjoyed the meditation. I hope you all enjoyed hanging out with me and Brian. And it's nice to see some familiar faces. And like, thank you again for the great questions and participating. And we'll see you all again in the future, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Stay warm.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all in the deep freeze
Yeah.
now.
Especially if you go outside in nature for 42 days in a row.
It's a good time to do it.
Do not email us and tell us that you got frostbite.
I got frostbite.
Brian told me to do
You're a
it.
very bad person. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Cool. Have a great night.